Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel here once again, and welcome back to the Labyrinth. So, a bit of a different episode of Dixie's Tales from the Labyrinth. The thing I'm going to be reading today isn't really a poem, it's more of a short story. But, because it is by a poet, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe, who did write some poetry, I'm going to bend the rules a little bit. Here on the channel for Dixie's Tales from the Labyrinth. I hope you guys don't mind too much, but without further ado, let's get right into it. This is The Telltale Heart. Besides The Raven, probably one of the most famous Edgar Allan Poe short stories, pieces of writing, what have you. So we're going to read it and we're going to analyze it. This is going to be an interesting read, so let's get right into it. True. Nervous, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye, with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him, and every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone through. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrusted it in. I moved in slowly, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for several long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber, and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see he would have been a very profound old man indeed, to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no, his room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily. I had my head in, and I was about to open the lantern, when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I had done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or grief, or no, oh no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo. The terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and enveloped the victim, and it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out of the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it within perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And now, how have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew the sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart, and increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still, but the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor, and pulled the heavy bed head over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done, but for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber, and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. Ha ha! When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bells sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart. For what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men, who introduced themselves with perfect suavity. I think that's not the word is pronounced, but with perfect suavity. As officers of the police, a shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them, at length, to his chamber. I showed him his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room, and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone, I should say. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gave indefinitiveness, until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles, in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro, to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting, and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose all over and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the man chatted pleasantly, and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no. They heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark, louder, 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 louder. Villains, I shrieked, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here, is the beating of his hideous heart. Alright, so that was that. So, after reading that, which we actually had to read it for high school, I believe it might have been either sophomore or I think senior year of high school when I first read that story. But wow, so one of the reasons why this story is so like analyzed and a lot of people like to explore the story and some of the themes throughout is because there's quite a bit going on here. For starters, we see a kind of a contrast with the narrator claiming that they're not mad, that they're not like crazy or insane or anything. However, their actions seem to suggest otherwise. The fact that there's this person who it's been speculated who this old man might be the person's father, their grandfather, whomever. But but the fact that they're obsessing over that eye, over the evil eye, and obsessing to the point where they want to get rid of not just the old man, but also get rid of the eye. That's a lot of obsession, and that might indicate madness, perhaps. Obsessing so much over this eye, like they say they're not mad, but you say you're not mad, but you're obsessing over this eye. You say you're not crazy or anything, but you're obsessing over this eye so much that you want to murder this person. That's insane to think about. Over how much you're obsessing over the eye, and then up to the act of killing the old man, and then putting his remains of the floorboards, which sadly that's happened in real life plenty of times, and with a lot of cases where the remains are placed under the floorboards, or even like sealed up in the wall or anything and stuff like that. But yeah, so um, uh, carrying out all these actions, like you sure you aren't mad, and then hearing the heartbeat, which causes the person to then turn themselves in, and then to pretty much out themselves and what they did. It like all these things definitely indicate madness and point to you may not say you're mad, but with all this stuff, are you sure about that? But I think that ad, of course, was done on purpose to show that this person truly is mad. Like that's the whole point of the story and everything. And then the other theme that's explored here is that of guilt, being being like guilty over killing this person. It could be speculated that the person who killed the old man, the narrator here, feels guilty about it. It probably doesn't feel too much guilt because they're almost like they're very much bragging about it, bragging about what they did and everything to whoever they're talking to. Um, but yeah, they're but yeah, showing that guilt. With the heart beating, like in the back of their mind, even before they killed the old man, like the heart beating, and it comes back once the old man has been disposed of so that beating heart. One could say like he's obviously guilty over what he did. That's why he well, first that's why he tried to conceal it instead of turning himself in right away and trying to hide it from the police and everything. But also why the heart beating is driving him crazy to the point where he has to reveal what he did. And so those themes explored throughout. Of course, Edgar Allan Poe known for very dark themes throughout his writings, but those themes are definitely ones to pay attention to, and the way they're explored here, but also the writing style, well, how some parts are slowed down and described a bit more, and that's really why we read it in class, not just because it's a very prolific piece of writing, but also the writing styles of some stuff being slowed down, kind of left to build and everything before speeding off into the next moment and having the next few moments freeze by before slowing down again. So pretty much that the way the pace is written into the story is a very fantastic tool, and it really builds up the suspense and really allows for world building within the story. So that is really well done, and that I think is one of the major appeals of the story. Besides its dark nature, is how the pace is dictated, and this is a story that's been analyzed by several, and even adopted to some movies and TV shows. More so like TV shows and everything. A couple examples. There was an animation that we were also shown of kind of like the Telltale Heart, an animation of it. Pretty much detailing it out. Which animation always something awesome to look at. I love animation and everything like that. Sadly, animation probably not good enough to do, but animation props to all the animators out there, because animation definitely it can be very taxing, but also very creative and very cool and awesome. But also, more famously, the episode with the squeaky boots. Boots, I believe the name of it was. The episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob gets the boots and he's going around squeaking them and everything. Mr. Krabs can't stand it. He's hearing it as he's sleeping, so he runs to SpongeBob's house and then takes the boots and everything. In which, kind of unrelated, but I love how it varies somewhat, but also kind of stays the same how far away Mr. Krabs usually is from like SpongeBob. And the map of Bikini Bottom has got to be kind of weird. Like obviously SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward live like right near each other, but then Mr. Krabs is sometimes kind of far away. Then there's the bargain mart. Then there's the main part of town. Then there's the Krusty Krab. So a bit all over the place with the map, but SpongeBob not really known for his consistency. But anyway, Mr. Krabs taking the boots, and then hiding them under the floorboards, so that SpongeBob doesn't have any anymore. And then the guilt setting in with SpongeBob feeling sad and everything that he lost the boots, feeling like disappointed, like he let Mr. Krabs down, and then he hears the squeaking as the customer's talking, trying to order her, and then he keeps hearing the squeaking as it drives him crazy. Then he reveals the boots under the floorboards. He like breaks down, admits the boots under the floorboard, and then boils the boots in oil, and then eats the boots. So yeah, kind of adopting the story, which I actually saw the episode first. Of course, major part of my childhood is the SpongeBob rerun, so I saw the episode first. It was kind of weird, but also kind of haha, because Mr. Krabs stole the boots and ate the boots. But then after reading the Telltale Heart and learning about the Telltale Heart, and then comparing it to the episode, I was like, okay, I see what they did there. But yeah, so a very prolific story, and I'm glad I got to read it for you guys. But that is going to do it for this episode. Like I said, kind of bending the rules a little bit, but let me know if you wanted to see me do more short stories like this. But nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the Telltale Heart. Did you dislike my review or analysis of it? And let me know in the comments. But thank you all so much for watching. And if you have any more short stories, or poems for that matter, that you want me to read, I am open to it, and I'd love to hear from you guys on it. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.